know, if they could have, they would have.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and that's, there's going to be a lot of carryover.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a lot of the same team.
Right.
And they're a good team. Like, they're still a really good team. Like, they have both their goalies, all their defensemen. They're going to add some depth. Yes, Marner's out. That's a very significant regular season piece in particular. But, Waz in. I don't know enough about Michelli to make a projection on what he's going to look like.
You know what he's like, though, Hayes? He might be like I don't want to stretch it too far. He plays a similar style of Mitch Marner, just not nearly as good.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like he's sort of a complimentary facilitator, creative with the puck, pass-first guy, not robust physically, relatively responsible, and he might get you, if he plays with good players, he might get you 50 points. So versus the 100 Mitch gets, but like that's sort of what he is.
Okay. Well, listen, if it pops here, then that's a good find because they didn't pay a lot for him. But beyond that, there's going to be more additions. There's going to be depth, but there's still going to be a good team. Like this year, I fully expect that there's still going to be a good team. But Florida's going to be a great team.
Yeah.
I think Montreal has improved. I'm curious what Ottawa still has in store the rest of the offseason because they haven't changed a lot. They kind of brought the band back for the most part. But it's going to be Tampa's going to be good. I just feel like those are the teams. Like I don't think Buffalo's improved. I don't think Detroit's improved. I think Boston's still going the wrong way.
This Montreal team, you got.
If they get a centerman.
Man, like under 25, you got Hudson, Suzuki, Caulfield, Demidov, Slavkovsky, Bolduc now, Fowler, Dobson, Gooley, Reinbacher, Newhook, Dobish in net, and Kirby Doc.
Yeah.
All under 25.
Right.
Alex Newhook is still under 25. That's crazy.
He's 24, coming 25. I checked it out because I thought he was older. But they're going to have to part with some of those guys. Like you actually might look at Montreal and go, maybe Newhook would be available. Or Kirby Doc might be available. Again,
Anderson, Gallagher.
Yeah, those guys, because they're going to have to move some players around to either add or, just get a little bit more veteran presence. But it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think they're better, but they made the playoffs last year, so they're trying to chip away. Ottawa added Lars Eller, but I think they're looking for Shane Pinto growth. I think they're, Dylan Cousins a full year there, see what he does. Like there's work to be done, but I like that. That Jordan Spence, I like the addition of him, that right shot D that they brought in. Like he's going to take Hamanuk's minutes. Like, so I think they're just trying to
be better with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just a better player and younger, obviously. But these teams, they're not going away.
No, but this is the nature of pro sports. And I was trying to say this on the panel. Okay, put Florida in their own situation. Obviously, they're unique. They're returning virtually the entire team. What you're hoping for them is they get old and they get broken down and Bob gets an injury. Something happens that changes their dynamic. Because we've seen when they're at their best with that group, as they currently are, they're better than everyone else. But if we take them out, and I know you can't, but if you take them out of the Eastern Conference, who else is much better than Toronto? You can argue Tampa might be a little bit better and Washington might be a bit better and, I don't know, Carolina will be good again. Who's much better than Toronto?
They're all lumped together.
They're all lumped together, but Toronto to me would be at the top or towards the top of that group of 5 or 6 teams.
Yep.
And that's as is. So, that's not the worst place to be when you have a bit of cap space and you've lost a 100-point player who's such an important part of your team. They're still going to be good, better than good, and maybe will be better than that when they eventually get to whatever they look like when they're all finished, because they're not all finished, and we'll see what that what that looks like as the summer goes on and probably as the year goes on next year.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, in terms of the teams in the West are intriguing to me because we were talking about Vancouver prior to you coming on. Brock Besser, that was the biggest shock of the day for me, that he gets to free agency and ends up re-signing with Vancouver anyway. They keep Garland. They find a way to re-sign, or they decide to re-sign Demko, which is an extension, which will kick in next year. Edmonton just shaved off players. That's all they've done today. Calgary, I don't know, they got Dustin Wolf, and then they got to figure out what else they're doing. I think. I mean, I don't.
They've got a goalie named Devin Cooley that they liked last year. He was an all-star in the minors. He's going to challenge Wolf. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in another goaltender to replace Vladar.
Vladar left.
Vladar went to Philly, which I was happy for him because Philly doesn't have any goalies. They got that Ersin, and then they got this mutant Russian goaltender. Yeah, who's like 6'10".
He plays dodgeball sometimes in there. It's tough.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for Vladar to possibly start and play games.
Yeah.
That's a team that's still retooling as well. Like Philly kind of knows who they are. Yeah. But of those teams in particular, Vancouver and Edmonton, let's say, which one had maybe a more surprising day, confusing day? How would you kind of describe what those two teams did today?
Okay, so for Vancouver, I say maybe not as surprising, but really quite confusing. Because when you factor in, Evander Kane coming over, Garland getting re-signed, Besser getting re-signed. So those are two guys, Noodles, you just mentioned. They tried to trade Garland and Besser in the last year and eventually re-signed them. The reason why Besser comes back to them, I think initially, Noodles, during the year, they were hung up on 4 or 5 years max for Brock Besser. And then they realized they got shut out of everything else. Matt Duchene went back to Dallas, and they couldn't get the players they wanted, so they upped the years, and that's probably why Besser went back to Vancouver. Even though he couldn't get 8, he still got more than what they were offering before. Right. So that sort of makes sense. They're all good players, and they're important guys. They need more goals. Those guys all can score. We got, everyone talks about Pettersson and him getting better, and Phil Hedl, him trying to stay healthy. But then the one part we haven't discussed is they got Demko on a big extension as well. Yes. And again, Demko, when he's good, he's an $8.5 million goalie. I guess, sure. But when he's healthy, when is that going to be? It hasn't been for several years. They signed Lankin into that big extension. They have Shilov, the American League playoff MVP, who now needs waivers. That one was, positive, but also confusing. So I'm not quite sure what they're up to, Hayes, when it comes to the goaltending situation. Maybe Noodles can explain it to me, but I didn't quite get that for Vancouver. Even though I understand the goal scoring, I don't quite get the goaltending. Even if they're all individually good, I don't get the mix and why you would do it the way they did it.
Yeah, you make an interesting point there, MJ. MJ, we were just talking about Vegas. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that team this year from the GTA with number 93, Mr. Marner in the roster. The terrible news about Alex Pietrangelo being out for the year with multiple health problems here at this late stage in his career. How do you look at that team? Do you consider them a potential contender, or is the death blow of losing your top defenseman, the guy that was the linchpin of your Stanley Cup team, just too much to overcome here?
Yeah, that's a massive hit for sure. Massive hit for sure. But they're going to be good again. I think Bruce Cassidy is an incredible coach. He really does get a lot out of his team. Jack Eichel's still very good. Hurdle, Stone, Carlson, Smith. They have a lot of good players. Have a lot of Howden, down they go. I think even getting